KGRA Digital Broadcasting and Pop Culture Minefield presents Dangerous Military Nerds. Dangerous Military Nerds. They're just like regular nerds, only dangerous. And now, your hosts, Don Ecker and Gary Cassell. Warning. The following program involves discussions between military veterans. Enjoy!
That, of course, is the G-rated version of that.
Yes.
Fuck it,
yes,
I'm going to
it
play
is.
R-rated. Here we go.
Warning. The following program involves discussions between military veterans. As such, it is almost guaranteed that there will be coarse language and crude subject matter. So if the words piss, fuck, cock, cunt, and shit offend you, or if openly discussing that one time you were butt-fucking your ex-girlfriend and her miniature pincher jumped up on the bed and started licking your asshole until you had the best orgasm of your life makes you uncomfortable, this might not be the place for you. Otherwise, enjoy.
I'm watching John's reaction to that video right now in the back of the studio.
That never fails to crack me up.
No, I know. It just fucking slays me the way he did that. That's what happens when you call Mac at or ask him to get you something, and he's drunk at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he zips you that. Mac starts drinking, and shit flows. Ooh, I'm having my tasty beverage. Welcome, guys. Who's all here in the comments? Let's go back into the chat. We got Boosh McFadden, who's a new member. Outstanding, Boosh. You make good money as a chef. I don't know why you're just becoming a member. I'm disappointed, buddy. Penny is, of course, here. We love Penny. Andy Morrow, our good friend from Limey friend from the UK. Let's see. Scribelight's here, my good buddy, writer. Let's see. Anima Confusa, love of my life. Dragon Ruse is here too. So the audience is growing. And of course, we want to welcome KGRA audience, all 4,000 to 5,000 of you. Hope you're enjoying the show. Last week was awesome. We had Del Dye on. That was
I want you to know I brought Andy Morrow over here from my show, Dark Matters Radio. Andy followed me over, so you can thank him or thank me or somebody for that.
Thanks, Don.
I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah. Not going to throw that in my face every opportunity, are you?
By the way, Anima Confusa has been a member for 10 months now.
Which is weird because she's been dating me longer than that. So
let us know when it's a year, Martine.
It's a year. I have a very good friend that is here right now. John Andrews, somebody that I like and also admire. We're going to be talking about his military experience. He's such an awesome guy. And I don't know if I want to show any of the photos yet, but I will show you this. He is also on the cover of one of the book covers I painted for Warrior Publishing, owned by Dale and Julia Dye. And there he is. He posed for this cover for me. And that's the wraparound cover for it. And I was so grateful he was able to do that because I wanted him on that cover. And so everybody, I want to welcome our good friend John Andrews. There he is. Put him up here. Put me down here. Put Don up there. And there, I think I rearranged everything nicely. What's up, Uncle Fester?
How you doing, man? This is twice today.
Yeah, last time wasn't live. Now it's live. How's it going? You've been bald since I've known you. Yes. And I'm assuming during part of that, you still had hair. You just like shaving your head.
I just
At this point, I suspect maybe it's a little older age. Is that kicking in? Losing some hair?
I don't know what I've lost. Because I've been the top has been bald for a very, very long time. I can still grow out the sides, but now it's all salt and pepper. And
are you starting to look like Captain Picard?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because it's like that episode of Seinfeld. Have you ever watched that when Julia Louis-Dreyfus is dating that swimmer that keeps his head shaved?
Yeah.
And she goes, I kind of like to see what you. And then, of course, he grows it back and realizes, oh, shit, I'm going bald for real. And she's like, I'm not so interested in you anymore.
Dumps him.
Yep, dumps him. Because that was the thing about those people. Is, like, they just had no class. None of them.
Yeah, they're bad. Like
They're horrible human
very
beings.
bad. Especially as the show goes on, it's like, okay, they turned it up to 11, like by the end.
And you know, another show that follows the exact same principle is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That they never emotionally grow as people. They are the same person at the end of an episode as they were at the beginning.
Yeah, they're flat arc characters. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Very
flat
little
arc
growth.
Characters. No,
Yep.
No growth. But I love both those shows because of that. Because it's like a cartoon. They're the same character every episode. You know what I'm talking about? How they do that in cartoons. You don't want growth.
Like I've been watching Schitt's Creek, and it's like these characters that are awful at the beginning and are gradually getting better
people.
Yeah, everybody becomes better.
And I love that. I enjoyed that show. You liking it?
I do. I didn't think I would. I was like very standoffish about it, and I think it is. I think it is hilarious.
Eugene is like, I've loved Eugene Levy since like, how old was I? 79. I was 15.
He's so funny. His facial expressions are like,
somebody experimenting.
It's just me.
What?
There we go. Like a Big Brother kind of moment.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden it was just John. Big Bad John. Big Bad John. But John, I met you many moons ago for the first time through a mutual friend, Ernesto Habe.
Yep.
And Ernie served with you with the second ID over in Iraq. And I forget, what was the number of the Stryker Brigade?
So we were 3rd Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division, but it's since been reflagged, and now it's 1st Brigade.
And I want to point out two important things. One, a lot of people don't know what that stuff is around it. It's called slat armor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was designed to break up RPGs and IEDs. And it did a fairly good job. Though Ernie got TBI from being hit by, I can't remember if it was an RPG or an IED, but it shook him up and caused him to have a TBI. You, on the other hand, now, which vehicle were you in?
So I was in 1st Squad, but we ended up, make a long story short, my squad leader did not get along with my platoon leader. So we ended up taking the position of 3rd Squad in the column, but we were in the 1st Squad. Customarily, if you're in 1st Squad in a Stryker unit, the lieutenant rides with you.
Right.
But ours rode with 3rd Squad. They didn't get along. He was the guy. It's the guy in the middle of the picture. This guy named Jeremy Williams, and he was. I mean, I think he's just now retiring. He ended up going like Special Forces. He's a free fall guy. Like he was, and I assume still is, a very, very tough guy, and he didn't want him there. And that's how it was. If that's what Sergeant Williams said, that's how it was going to be. And so that was the squad as we rolled.
Is Sergeant Williams in this photo?
He's in the middle. He's the middle guy.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Where's your platoon leader? Not here?
He's not here. He's not in that photo. I think we took that photo pretty late in the deployment because we didn't have, like, everyone has to have like the tough guy, war photo. And that was ours. I think I have it on the wall behind me or on bookshelf. And that's some of those guys are still in. The guy on the left is Charlie Oakes. I don't know what happened to him. Top left, that's Rick Lopez. He got out some time ago. Jeremy Williams, I think, is still in, or he's just retiring. That's me. The guy to my right is a guy named Ridenhour. He's an Apache helicopter pilot today.
Oh,
yeah. He was a, I don't want to say he was a slacker, but he was not very serious about being in the military. And then one day he was like, I think I want to be a helicopter
complete
pilot.
lifer.
Yeah, he was like, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. He's like, no, I think I could do it. Well, okay, yeah, whatever. But yeah, he is a helicopter pilot. I mean, he is an attack helicopter pilot.
That's amazing, man. And here's a good one of you when you were out doing
we were on patrol. Yeah.
Patrol, yeah.
That
now, when you would do foot patrol?
Oh yeah. That was one of our main duties that we in Mosul. One of the regular patrols that we got tasked to do. there was this marshy area across the river from the brigade headquarters.
Right.
And we would patrol that to make sure we kept rockets or mortars from firing on there because they were very, very easy. There's a very easy shot from that area to hit the brigade headquarters. So we would.
Because you guys mostly, from what I remember reading, was QRF.
We drove almost everywhere. Yep.
Because the nickname that Strikers got, and I want to bring this up, that right at the point when you guys were doing it, Strikers were experimental, and the Army was not discussing this stuff publicly because they weren't sure how they were going to work, if they were going to be successful, and they were massively successful.
Yep.
Strikers got the nickname the Ghosts of Samara because they would just suddenly show up at somebody's house.
It became the brigade's name is called Ghost Brigade now. It wasn't called that when I was there, but that's as a legacy. Yeah.
It's amazing stuff. And you guys would just go out at 0 dark 30, roll up to somebody's house, and they wouldn't hear you. The Strikers roll so quiet.
Let me ask a question. I don't know about the protocol today, but when I was in Nam, if we had an area like that where you were describing the marsh, and the opposition could come in, set up a mortar tube or whatever, were you guys permitted to go out and booby trap that area to catch them?
We would try to set up ambushes and stuff, and most of that stuff doesn't play out. It was later in the war we established these things called small kill teams they were more decentralized. They would stay in place for very, very long periods of time. We would basically just occupy an area, and if somebody came out to set up a mortar tube, then we could shoot. At that time, we were still on schedules, so it was more of like an area denial. So you would know, okay, the Americans are going to come at some point in time today, which is how we hit an IED on the way home. I mean, we came back from one of those missions; they just blew us up. So it wasn't. I don't think we had that kind of freedom that the way you would have had in Vietnam. No.
Well, because rules, because you're working in and around a city, and setting up booby traps around there could be bad, because you don't know who's going to run into it. So I'd imagine they'd probably lock that shit tight within the city. But I am curious. There's this other photo before we get into some other things. I love this picture of you.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the Striker, and I recognize where you're at. You're over on the right side of the vehicle under the air guard hatch. And the little kid is a kid that you said you wanted to adopt, I think you said. I
think we had kids on the base. He was cool. There's another picture somewhere without his glasses on. And that was an outpost that was in the city. I think that Doc actually got his start at was a place called Cop Blickenstaff, was named after one of our guys that got killed. And there were like civilians on the base, and he was in the Striker with me. It was a little outpost in the middle of the city. It was cool. And you could drive out there. You could stay there. It was whatever facility it used to be, whether it was government or something. You could put a company in there with a company of Strikers and be in the city and still be relatively secure.
Which was something else, because when we get into it, historically, I remember when I began the process of writing the script, I hadn't even met Ernie yet. And did I ever tell you how I met Ernie?
No, I just always seemed like you knew
Colby
him.
Bazell.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
I talked to Colby, and Colby said, the guy, because I'm a medic, and I wanted to write from the medic's perspective, because that is the one person who will be everywhere.
Yeah.
During a battle, because he's got to be checking on his guys. So he's the best witness for what happens in the battle. And I was so grateful that Colby introduced me to him. Then, of course, Ernie introduced me to you. And I felt like I had a really good idea what I wanted to write about. So I began writing that script. And you were a smartass in it. And it's why because Ernie would tell me some of the shit you guys would say to each other. And I would, because nobody knows a soldier until they hear them being grabastic.
Yeah.
Soldiers are very grabastic. It's just the nature of being in the military. A soldier's not a soldier until he's doing soldier shit. And if he's not doing soldier shit, he's being grabastic. But you guys lived in Connex, which was really nice, because I only got to do that once on temporary, and I'm like, this is amazing. That's what I want to retire into.
We
living
had
in
great.
commons.
We had great rooms. They were awesome.
And
were
you
like-
guys, I think you were 50 yards from the latrine, as I recall.
Oh yeah, we were really close. We had
yeah, you were
we had
close.
very nice latrines.
And Ernie talked about it because the one thing he wanted to do is like, this was the first war where there was something happening that had never happened in the age of warfare, which is instant contact with home. And what happened that day was he was on a web call with his wife when shit went down that morning. And you guys had to go out to when all the bombs went off.
Yeah.
And it was a series of 500-pound car bombs that went off all over Iraq. But the big city that got hit the worst was Mosul, where you guys were. And there's 2 car bombs that day, as I recall, and in Mosul. And it impacted a hospital and the street right around the corner where the police station and the mosque was. And you guys didn't even get to see the damage until the battle was over.
We never, didn't even get to see it.
So it was just because Ernie shared those pictures with me, that street, what it looked like when you guys finally, when the battle was done and you were able to look around. It led to like, what the hell is that? And he had one of those moments I had where he found like a chunk of fat on the ground. Like, what the hell did that go to?
I thought we did that. Like, if you didn't know anybody, you go, oh man, this place looks like hell. I assumed we did it.
There were people that were in cars, but they weren't there anymore. It's mostly just goo.
The streets were completely empty when we got on the objective.
Yeah, and the bombs hit at what would be referred to in America as rush hour.
Yep.
Because people were on their way to work, and people that worked all night were coming home. And so the streets were packed when those bombs, and they did it deliberately. And what makes this an important historical moment, it was kind of like, I referred to it, and Dale agreed with me, that it was kind of the Tet Offensive of the war in Iraq, that the insurgency changed direction, where they had been hitting like mosquitoes, like gnats, going at the Americans and all of the allies. They chose this day to kill Iraqi people. They targeted the people. This included a line that went around the block at the police station, people trying to find work, which of course, I don't mind getting into the politics of it. I'm curious about your opinion on that, because I believe that the biggest problem was created by us when we fired everybody from the Iraqi military.
I mean, most people think that. I think so. I mean, we have this. I think we had a tendency in the war very early on to assume that, if you were in the Ba'ath Party, you were kind of like, it was kind of like being in the Nazi Party, that kind of thing.
Ba'athist, right?
Yeah. Being in the Ba'ath Party is nothing like being in the Nazi Party.
No, it's nothing like it.
I think at its height, Ba'ath Party had like 2.5 million members in Iraq. Well, there's only 30 million people that live in the country. So that's a lot. Everybody was in the Ba'ath Party. Teachers were in the Ba'ath Party. Janitors were in the Ba'ath Party. Like you were just in the Ba'ath Party. And there were large segments of the society that couldn't be in it. You weren't in the Ba'ath Party if you were a Kurd. You were probably not in the Ba'ath Party if you were a Shia.
Kurds, so everybody knows, they are the Christian Iraqis, right?
No, there are Christian Kurds. No, they're just a different ethnicity. They're Central Asian ethnicity. They speak different language.
Because I know they're the ones that Turkey has the most problem with.
They do, yeah.
Which when I tell you the demise of City of Fire, because Dale Dye took my script and wrote another script, and it was something else. He turned it into Platoon because I'd given him all these different events that included that knife fight that one officer had when he went into a building and ran into a Haji there and got into a hand-to-hand combat with this guy. And I'm like going, why is an XO doing that? That's my question. Like, why is it?
I guess,
But just the same, there was a lot of shit that went on all the way, because the battle started for you on June 24th, 2004.
Correct.
And you guys woke that morning and had the mortars coming in. And then the bombs went off. And the minute the bombs went off, the entire country went into lockdown. And you guys were the only military to go outside the wire that day.
Yeah, there was nobody out. There was nothing
Nobody
there.
else.
There was nothing. in the
Everybody
street.
else was locked
Yeah.
down. That because they were told, lock it up.
Yeah.
And you guys went out. How did that feel?
Well, what just out of curiosity, before he answers that, what were the established ROEs?
So it's that, that standard one, you can use minimal force necessary to achieve the objective. You always retain the right of self-defense, minimize damage of civilian property, sensitive areas, that kind of, that I don't want to call it a tight ROE because I think that's something that was said about the war, that, American troops didn't have the ability to fire, or, only return fire if fired upon. You could always shoot first. Especially in that phase of the war, we always shot first, if we could. It wasn't until later on where things really, especially how we interacted with Iraqi civilians later in the war, where we became very, very, very sensitive about shooting first. But in that stage of the war, 03, 04, probably even into, early 06, you could still, I don't want to say get away with stuff, but you wouldn't have been questioned about anything you did.
Well, I remember Ernie talked about, like, you guys had just been in a firefight, and all of a sudden you were ordered to go weapons tight by your talk, and Ernie was talking about how he was looking out the air guard hatch, and he could see one of the guys that was just shooting at him.
Yeah,
had his weapon, and he wasn't allowed to shoot at him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about with Ernie. I mean, if he didn't shoot, he probably had a good reason not to shoot.
Well, he's told not to.
Yeah.
He was told they went weapons tight. But going back to it, it's like, what was that like? How did you feel knowing that you were the only guys going out that morning?
It was weird because we had all of us by then. We're in June, so we have been on ground at this point 6-7 months. We're fairly experienced. We've been in large scale clearing operations, but my company to date had not been in any serious contact. We had been under fire by then. We had taken IEDs and mortars. Matter of fact, very, very serious IED strike, just like 2 weeks prior to that. But we rolled out, and it was very confused at first. We heard we had to go to a mosque. We went to the wrong mosque. We didn't even know where we were supposed to go. So there was a lot of confusion of where we're even supposed to go. We don't know the names of the police stations. It's Sheikh Fatih police station. We didn't know that at the time. No, we didn't know anything.
Well, you also ran into the cops on the way in an alleyway. They had fled the scene.
Yep.
And you were getting as much intel from them as possible before you headed in.
I wasn't involved in that, but yeah, that is my understanding.
Yeah.
But once we got directed on where to go, it was pretty quick. Once we knew where we needed to go, we had established it turned into a company attack. So we would have had 2 platoons of infantry and probably a platoon of mobile gun systems or not MGS of anti-tank systems that could fire the missiles on that day. I think we probably had 3 of those vehicles or 2 of those vehicles. But it was not what you would think. If you're saying okay, what's the first battle you're ever going to be in? Everyone's got this vision in their head, like it's going to be like Platoon or Saving Private Ryan or something like that. Then it really wasn't the effect. It was very, very slow at first. We were very slow to deploy. And then it was a period of very, very, very fast action. And then it was slow again after that.
Well, that's just it. It's referred to as an 8.5 hour battle.
Yeah.
But in reality, you guys did maybe 1 hour of actual combat.
About an hour, yeah. It's about an hour.
I jokingly refer to it as, you think they're still in there?
Yeah. It was a lot of that.
Your head up and see if they're still in there. And I think one of my favorite moments that Ernie described to me was when he wanted to make sure everybody's hydrated.
Yeah.
Grab those big gallon containers and put them over his shoulders. It was running from vehicle to vehicle. And he got all the way to one end of the strikers, but then he had to make it all the way back to his striker at the back. And that's when the snipers started taking shots at him.
Yeah, that's a very medic thing to worry. It was very, very hot that day, even for Iraq. It was very hot, and it was before the process of carrying ice water on the vehicles. You just had hot water. That
Yeah,
was
you
it.
had the big jugs of
Yeah.
warm, tasty warm water.
It was disgusting, yeah. But by the second deployment, we had ice contractors, and you always had cold drinks. Like even, in the furthest reaches of Iraq, you always had ice water. It was, probably a testament to, how good the U.S. is at doing those kinds of things, like delivering things to where they mean to deliver. I always had cold drinks, from then forward, and air conditioning. But at the time, no. Yeah, Doc's running around.
Because that was the other thing that was really nice about your barracks was the fact that each unit had their own air conditioner.
Yeah, I would set the AC to like 68 degrees. Like it was like you would step outside. There was like a 50-degree difference in between you and outside, and it was one of those luxuries that,
like going through a Stargate.
It was like you had all the comforts of America in this little tiny tin box, and then you'd step outside and there you'd be in a foreign country. And I'm obviously still in a foreign country inside the Connex, but it was one of these things that if you have to go to war, that's not one of the downsides of it. That's definitely one of the plus sides.
Yeah, and I heard from some of the other guys, chow was good there too.
The chow was very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That chow hall was very, very good.
And I got to tell you, it means a lot.
Oh, absolutely. That's everything.
Morale is impacted by the food you eat.
Our chow was always good. Like, except at the end when my understanding is when they were shutting stuff down, that was like one of the first things to go with chow service. And
yeah, well, you guys, did you guys have a Burger King on your fob?
Not that first one. We actually had Iraqi restaurants back when that was less of a security concern. When we left, someone detonated a very large IED in the chow hall, killed 6 people. It was absolutely devastating. And I think that's when they were less, American security was less comfortable having people come and go from the fob because it's the security risk. Behind us, where we lived, we had a guy called Mujdat the Turk, and he made kebabs on pilfered pallets that he would like, it was like a Turkish kebab place. And you would go and you would have these delicious Turkish meals, would have tea and cigarettes and all this stuff. It was great. It was that part of the war was frankly was excellent. We had great gyms. We had good internet connection, not like the internet we would have later on, but even, for its day, it was really good.
That's fantastic. On that morning, just relay some of your thoughts on what happened that day and how you remember it.
Oh man. So I don't know, like you train to do things that's not what you train to do. Someone saying, okay, we're going to go fight in a city that also has a residential area that has a that's not what in your mind when you think what's your first time going to be like. That's not how you picture it. We rolled up. The streets are empty. It's hot as can be. It's very bright. There's people shooting at us from a very, very obvious, geographic landmark, this mosque minaret that they're in, which, the insurgents later in the war, they would never do that. They would never sit in a mosque.
There was a change in the insurgency.
Yeah,
you guys were dealing with Syrian and Iranians, as I recall, right?
It's tough to say. I mean, I've also heard that this was a more organic kind of like youth movement. There were a lot of Sunni insurgent groups that didn't like take off, or that didn't have a lot of oomph. Like there was one called 1920s Revolutionary Brigade. They operated further in the south. There was a small organization called JRTN. They were, a handful of fighters. So whatever the composition, who these guys were. I have heard Syrian, I've heard Quds Force, I've heard, I've always heard about this Iranian influence in the war. And I don't know how true that is. Like, without looking at any intelligence of it, we didn't take any prisoners that day. We only, I think we were able to definitely get our hands on one of their bodies, maybe 2.
Because they actually, and it's not because they love them or anything. They would collect their bodies.
They take them with them. Yep.
Because they didn't want to give you body counts.
Yep. They take them. They always take their dead unless there's some situation where they just can't.
And even I don't have very rare. Video, I have 2 videos, but I can't find one of them, which is the toe hit
Yep.
on the minaret, and you can actually see something fall out the other side of the
Yeah.
minaret, which was where the sniper was. And Ernie swears up and down that that was the sniper.
It might have been. We were being fired from there. It strikes me as something like if you're an Iraqi or let's say you're Syrian, you came across the border because there was, whether there were Syrian insurgents using the cross border and they were operating in Mosul and they were able to move back and forth. That's certainly stuff that happened during the war. There's a very famous Iraqi high commander that operated in Syria. He's in the shadow of his name's Al-Duri. He's a redheaded guy.
Oh, I remember that guy. Yeah.
As of 2017, he was still alive. He was impossible to kill. We never found him. We never caught him. Delta didn't drop a bomb on him or anything like that. And he lived a very long time. He had a very successful career as an insurgent. And he was associated with one of these splinter groups, not one of these big insurgent groups. But it's just, I don't want to call it amateur hour because we're all amateurs, right? Like we're new to war. They're new to war. None of us have ever been in a company fight. They've never been in an in-depth defense after they had killed 70 civilians or however many civilians they had just murdered. So, an insurgent, just 6 months down the road, they would never do that. They're going to dig in. They're going to dig into this, and sit in here, and you're basically waiting to die, for all they knew, we were going to drop a bomb on the mosque. They didn't know that. And I think it was very much a live to fight another day mindset after that.
I want to bring up something because I don't remember the guy's name that was in the very rear striker. His striker was the only one that didn't have the automated 50 on it. His was the manual 50 in the back. And I wrote what happened to him, but I sexed it up a little bit.
Okay.
You'll like how I sexed it up too, because he said he was just sitting there with his back against the hatch, and he's just got his hand relaxed on the butterfly trigger, just chilled. You guys hadn't seen or done anything yet, and he's in the back, and he's just sitting there and waiting. You know what it's like. You wait. You wait. You were there. You know what it was like waiting. And he said all of a sudden this Haji jumps out from behind a wall in the alleyway that he's looking down, leaps up in the air and lands with an RPG over his shoulder. And when he jumped out from behind the wall, he leapt right into the sights of the 50. He didn't have to move the 50. He just squeezed the trigger one round, and just the upper part of this guy's body evaporated.
We used the hell out of them. That's exactly what would happen if someone jumped in front of your 50. And we were very good at using them close quarters like that later in the war. Then, we were very conventional with it, that the 50 was used to lay down suppressive fire while you ran around. And later on, we were using them almost 25 meters in front of the striker. And
but you guys also had something else that was cool. The robotic 50s that the gunner managed from inside the vehicle, but with the gunner was also the FBCB2 system.
Yep.
Which was something else.
Very cool.
It led to a very horrifying moment for you guys in that battle. And I put it into the comic script, and it ended up in the final script that Dale wrote, which is there were so many Haji approaching your vehicle that you had that female voice going, how do they refer to it? Enemy in your area?
It'll say danger, enemy in area, or enemy in area.
And then it was just over top of itself, just kept saying it. And I was told by Colby and Ernie both, and I'm curious how you react to that was very disconcerting.
Yeah, it says danger, enemy in area, danger, enemy. It's a woman's voice. Colby wrote specifically about, like, I think it was something like the psychology of a woman's voice is supposed to soothe a man in combat.
It's calming, but it didn't.
It would tell you. I don't know whatever the successor systems were, because as I was leaving Stryker World, we were getting new ones. FPCB2 is as a concept, it is absolutely incredible how it works, and from a tech perspective and what it was meant to do and what it ultimately did. It was very, very forward thinking for its day. And though it didn't turn out to be the system that we thought it would be, it was still, at the tactical level, was very good.
And I understand that some of you guys, I don't know about you, but I know Ernie has a lot of resentment towards the next group that was made famous for the strikers, because you guys were the ones that broke them in and showed how to do it. And he said this other group, and I remember they had the Punisher skull.
Oh, 25th ID. Yeah, they were tight. Yeah.
He says that they got all the attention.
They did,
because by that point it was okay to talk about the strikers, but the DoD and the Army did not want to talk about them up front because they weren't sure if it was going to be successful.
If it was going to work out. Yeah.
And basically, the way I read it, that you guys were the ones who led the way to making it successful, but in the end, didn't get any of the kissing.
No, I mean, we missed a lot of the, how it was. We missed a lot of the great stuff that striker brigades would do. It was very cool to be the first, and it was a lot of work to be the first, especially in those early proofing them and driving them and learning how to work them, and all the maintenance protocols and just automotively, like what they can do and what they definitely can't do. We rolled over a ton of them. Our first fatalities were striker accidents, not anything related to enemy.
Well, that's how it was with us too. I had a buddy that was actually killed. One was killed in a rolled over vehicle.
Yeah.
But one of my buddies got electrocuted in Germany. They left their antenna up and hit a power line.
Yeah. Poof. That's it. It's just, you look even like World War II, like 8th Air Force. Like I think the majority of their casualties were aircraft accidents. Things of that nature, and it's.
People don't know that there's like 70% fatalities in the military. I mean, a majority of fatalities in the military are actually not from warfare.
They're from the vehicle accidents. Iraq and Afghanistan was 250 casualties, 250 killed of the 6,000 killed or something like that in vehicle accidents, motor vehicle accidents. There were 8. I think there were 6 murders in between the two wars. Like there was. I did a data project last year on mechanisms of injury, and I dug into some of the really granular ones, and it was electrocution. Guy fell off a bridge or something like that, and it's. I don't know, like as a nation, if we're very good about honoring the memory of people that were killed in accidents or killed in training. I think it's something we generally don't talk about and memorialize enough. I know our unit did it at our memorial, had people that were killed in training, and it was good. It's good to keep those memories alive.
Yeah. Just to share with you real quick, my nephew graduated from Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh, cool.
And he was his AIT was, I forget the MOS now, that dealing with IEDs and shit like that.
Oh, nice.
And my sister freaked out and calls me, and she's like, Gary, I'm so freaked out. He's going to be working with unexploded. And I'm like, look, sis, I'm going to tell you something. There's a billion things in the military that'll kill him before doing his actual job.
Yeah. They're very safe.
Not helping. And I'm like, I'm just telling you, his job is, he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
He'll do fine. And but my sisters hate me.
I was a paratrooper later in my career, and the parachute.
Now, see, I didn't know about that. You went airborne.
Yeah.
No shit.
I did it at God, how many years was I in? I think 14 years in. I was old. I was at E7 when I went back on duty, and I did what most people don't do. They make the jump from vehicle to airborne, and I went into 82nd. The culture was very, very hard on me, and I ended up being a paratrooper and for 3 years, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Did you do jumps, or what did you do?
Oh yeah. I went in. I was already qualified because I started my career as a ranger in 275.
Well, yeah, because you're a part of Tomahawk too.
I started off in Ranger Regiment and Fort Lewis, and I got kicked out. Yeah. They used to. It was no nonsense back in the day. You would get kicked out for like the tiniest little thing, and a guy I came up with was a guy named Leroy Petrie. He ended up winning Medal of Honor in Afghanistan. He is like a legendary Ranger. He is no joke. He is everything that you can possibly be as a soldier and a Ranger. But it was so easy to get thrown out. I get thrown out. I'm on my ass. They have me doing these very embarrassing details. I wasn't even allowed to wear a uniform anymore. I didn't train. I wore PTs all day. It was very degrading.
Oh man, yeah.
And there was this guy that came by recruiting for some experimental unit, and all you had to do was give him your name, and they would pull you out of Ranger Regiment. So for a while, the place you went was to be a Tomahawk. Tomahawk was like this refuge for people that got thrown out of Ranger Regiment. And you would pack your bags and you would go from being treated like dirt to being treated like a hero like the next day. And it was, the unit was so good and generous to me, and for a time in my life as a young soldier who really was feeling like shit, having failed at being a Ranger, to going to having a home and a barracks and friends and a unit that appreciated you. You know, I stayed with that unit for 10 years. I loved being a Tomahawk. It was great. They threw me out. Like they kicked us all out. We had been in the unit for so long that they finally just reached a point where they said, look, if you were a Tomahawk baby or a striker baby is what they would call you, they put your name on a list and they PCS'd all of us out of the unit to break up the culture in the unit. But for 10 years, that's all I did was striker, Tomahawk, deploy, come home, train, and come. It was great. You know, I'm so grateful for that experience.
When you look back on it, do you often think back on it? Is there anything that bothers you about that period too?
In that 10-year, I wish I was more serious about developing like skills as an infantry soldier. Like I never went to Ranger school. I wish I had. If I could do one thing over again, I would have gotten my health and fitness.
Get your Ranger tab.
Yeah, I would have done that. It's when they say, you know, you'll regret not going to Ranger school. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, being out, it's an achievement that I wish I had a little bit more serious about. I was very into Middle Eastern culture. I learned Arabic, you know, and I wanted to be a special forces soldier. I did not have
Did
the
you learn
talent.
Farsi or what did you learn? So
I learned modern standard Arabic. I can read Farsi. I can't speak it. I learned modern standard Arabic and I know Iraqi as a dialect. I'm still spotty on it. And later on, when I did my graduate education, I did Iraqi history as my MA. So I really got into Iraqi history.
I was taught one word I remember to this day is Medichinati, and I can't even remember what language that was.
It sounds like Farsi.
Is Farsi.
I don't know it. I know like 3 words in Farsi, and they're not.
And it's for medic.
Is it?
Yeah, Medichinati.
Because in Iraqi you have dictor, which is just doctor, you know, or mumerda, which is nurse. You know, they don't have medic. Yep. Yeah, so usually say doctor or nurse.
And by the way, I want to show your patch because a lot of people don't know this. These guys were some serious motherfuckers. That movie with Clint Eastwood, what pissed me off is they make it out to be Marines, but it was actually these guys that were on Heartbreak Ridge. 2nd Infantry Division. Badass motherfuckers.
It's a great, it was just, you know what I liked about it? It's that, like, we tend to glamorize like special operations, airborne, you know, Navy SEALs, Rangers, all this other stuff. And it's like, the people who are really like doing most of the fighting, most of the killing, most of the dying, most of the drudgery of our common like line soldiers, right? Like
your basic grunt.
They're just basic grunts. They're just guys in a truck. They're like, oh, I don't know, man. I'm in this vehicle and I got to go do this thing. And you know, it's just a job. I'm doing this thing. This is the thing I'm doing. This is where we're going. When I get there, I'm going to do these things. Then I'm going to come home. The culture in, say, like special operations, or the culture in, you know, my very limited exposure to special operations, but culture in airborne is very different. It's more like a vocation. It's like, I don't say it. It's like there's like a gym bro culture, and there's like an obedience to the division.
Well, it falls back on a thing, and all of us were taught this. It's like rely on your training, do your job. And the biggest concern, and I'm sure it was the same with you, that you want to do your job to the best of your ability because you don't want anybody near you getting killed because you did something stupid.
Yeah, definitely don't want that.
It's one of your biggest fears. It was mine. And I was a medic because I could literally kill somebody by doing the wrong thing. And I was terrified of it. And but you guys just like the thing about, and I want to tell people, once they switched out the 91 Bravos for 68 whiskey, medics were a little different. They became more part of the team. Now, I was allowed during CQB training to take part, and I did CQB. But the medics and your guys, like Doc, Ernie, he went in there with you and was part of the stack. And
he could, yeah. You'd bring your medic as close as you could, You don't want
Usually
your
fourth man or fifth man in the stack.
I mean, sometimes, especially if you take a building and let's say you have, let's say you're going to hit a building and you've got the squad, but you also have like part of the platoon headquarters attached to you. If they're not fighting, they're in the way, right? So it's like we can't afford to take people into the building that can't clear rooms. We just really can't. Like, there's no there. You either need to stay outside of the building, or if you're going to come in the building. Medics today carry rifles. They have pistols. They're trained to shoot. My medics, when I was in 82nd, were these guys were no joke.
Well, you know where that got started was in Don's War, in Vietnam, because medics stopped wearing the Red Cross, and began carrying not a sidearm but an actual rifle, because they were trying to confuse the enemy, because medics are a top-notch target for snipers. And because you can demoralize a unit by killing their medics. Their officers, the radio, and fucking medics. Those are your top guys for getting sniped.
And the machine gunner.
And machine gunners.
Machine gunners, which are valuable.
And anybody in morale drops very quickly when you lose your commanding officer or your senior NCO, or you lose your medic. Because the medic, I've tried to explain this, and I think Anima, my girlfriend, understands this really well now, that the heart of many platoons is your medic, because they really do. If you got a good medic, they take care of you, and they're always in your shit.
They're Joes too, so it's like they have their pulse on the platoon in ways that like even NCOs sometimes don't get, right? Because you're way more likely to tell the medic that something's wrong than you would be to tell, like, you're not going to go to your sergeant like, oh, sorry, I just can't make it anymore. That's not going to.
I was the Dear John guy.
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
John, you came to me, man. I was dad. I was like dad or mom, I
think in Ernie's case, because he was older too. So it was like.
Same here. I was older than all my guys. I was almost 30 when I went in.
He has like I don't want to say like a world weariness, but like if you've done things, like it makes it a little easier. It also makes it a lot easier to tell people just to shut the fuck up and deal with it,
Suck it up and drive on.
I mean, sometimes that's the answer. Oh, my leg hurts. Oh, well, just keep walking. Like all our legs are broken. I mean, like I mean, home is 6 miles down this road. We don't live here, so I don't know. I mean, I can't carry 2 rucksacks. Like we're at this level right now.
Exactly.
And it's just. And we were still in the culture of the military doesn't change. Don can probably tell you that. Like,
oh no, soldiers are always the same. Always. I want to play a little video for you here, because I don't know if you knew I had this. This is from, I think this is after the TOW rocket went out. Now, before I do show the video, there was a funny incident. They got approval from the TOC to fire the first TOW rocket, and it misfired.
Yeah.
It went up and then down, and it's supposed to go back up, but it didn't do that. It went up, down, and hit the road and slid under a Volkswagen Beetle parked on the street.
And we had a live TOW on the objective.
Yeah,
that we have to deal with. Yeah,
and then you had to go through the process again to get approval for another TOW rocket. But this is the scene of the minaret being shot from the fire guard hatch, and I think Ernie shot this footage. Ernesto Habe.
Yeah, I was on the next street over. This is the you're right. This is after the
TOW hit it. That's
TOW
why all
hit.
that dust and smoke was coming off the minaret. I mean, some of that dust was them
hitting it. Yeah,
because they were firing those 50s full automatic into that minaret.
Everyone was shooting. It was like everybody got there. If you hadn't shot in the firefight at that point in time, like that was your chance to shoot. Because I think there's a fear, especially like amongst a lot of combat soldiers, that they won't get to do like combat in combat. Like they'll be on security or they'll be on KP that day or something that will prevent them from being able to come home with their chest puffed out and saying, I did my job in the war. That's very much a 20-something-year-old man like thing. I had that
It
concern.
is the
Like,
bravado.
That
pride.
is. See, how will people not know that I'm the baddest motherfucker in the world if I didn't, come home with a skull in my rucksack or something? And it's I don't
got
have
a string of ears
that's
on my.
that's like I'm around I'm a law student today, and like I'm around 20-year-olds all the time, like, and they don't know anything from anything. If you tell them you're in the military, okay, thank you for your service. Some of them, other of them, they could care less. So it's like, when you're in that moment, you want to go in, you want to do your job, you want to shoot, you want to, what's that Winston Churchill line? What nothing is more exhilarating than be shot at with no effect or something like that. Like, it's great to survive a battle, and it's great to shoot your weapon, the red badge of courage stuff, and and where that is, I think I think where we were, that's the dismount point. So the toe strike, we came up on the objective, and we set up our company's base of fire. We started just shooting at this mosque and anything that we were taking fire from. And the toe shot hit. My striker shot 50 cal at it. For some reason, I got out of the striker to help reload the 50 cal, like something dumb. I volunteered. Oh, I'll get it. And I ran and put 50 cal rounds in it. And there was a lot of this like confusion going on to the point that when I opened up the can, because I thought the 50 cal was out, there was still like 25, 50 rounds left in there. And I just turned because none of us were wearing hearing protection. I just turned my head away and just squeezed down on the butterfly trigger and just fired off those last 25 rounds out into God knows where. Who knows where they went? Somewhere, I guess, out in the cities. Certainly not at the tower, because I didn't aim or anything like that. Reloaded it. We shot around for a little bit. We went into assault. We finally got the order to assault. And that is actually where we got off of the vehicles. So that's the security position where we dismounted.
This will lead. We got to go to commercial break here in a minute.
Okay.
So I want to get into that for the second hour. It's like a lot of people were unaware at the time because there was misinformation released by AP and other news agencies about how the mosque and everything and the police station were taken. And they, I'll get into it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is something the first conversation Ernie and I had, because I relayed to him what was written here in the United States. And Ernie's like, yeah, that didn't happen. No, that's not how that happened.
Yeah.
And I'll go into it and get your perspective on that. But Colby Bazell, who went on to be a journalist for, was it Swank or one of the adult magazines?
I know he wrote for a few places. He had a pretty good career,
he was your team's machine gunner, as I recall. He carried the saw.
He was I think he was a 240 gunner. I think he fired 240. I think he had a 240. He was in weapon squad.
Yeah. And as I recall, because I read his stuff too, and that's how I got introduced to him. I was like, man, I love your writing, dude. I love
My Wars is a terrific book.
Oh my God, they did that animation too.
Oh my God, isn't that incredible?
Oh my God, when I started writing City of Fire, I want to do that.
Yeah.
No live action, but then Dale's like, now son, I'm going to make a movie. I went, yes, sir. You don't count. You don't have to argue with Dale Dye. But I wanted to do the graphic novel first.
Yeah.
And you and Ernie were the two main characters in my script. I can't even find that script anymore, man. It pisses me off. I want to find that script because I wrote some funny shit for you and him, just constantly fucking with each other.
I'd love to see that.
But we got to go to a commercial break here. Let's go ahead and get this over with so we can move on to the second half of the show. Chanel, do you mind going a little early? Is that okay? Hi, guys. This is Gary from Pop Culture Minefield here on KGRA, and we're leaving for our first break. I hope we survive.
Did you know 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? If you struggle with focus, run low on energy, or when it's time to finally sleep, you simply can't, this can all be linked to dehydration, and Fuel Up has the answer. Our proprietary formula contains the finest cellular hydration with the strongest immune-enhancing natural ingredients. The Fuel Up system is made up of 3 different incredibly tasting varieties. Wake kickstarts your day with a jolt of caffeine. Play boosts focus while hydrating your cells. Rest not only helps you relax, but also rejuvenates your cells while you sleep. Here's what our clients have to say.
I really don't miss my coffee, and you can tell the difference.
So I'm gonna take it for the energy. I'm gonna take it for the play. I'm gonna take it, all day.
And it works. That's the thing. It works. We love it.
Take the Fuel Up Challenge now, where we offer a feel the difference money back guarantee. Fuel up for life.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Oh wow, we survived! Welcome back to the commercial break. Now for some more pop culture minefield on KGRA.
All right, before we move into the open forums discussion, I do want to go into the last part of this, because what got released by AP News about that battle was that the Iraqi National Guard that were trained by our SF teams were the ones who cleared and took over the mosque. But what Ernie told me was, you guys went in and cleared the mosque and the police station, and then were ordered out in order for the Iraqi National Guard guys that came there after the battle was done.
Yeah, they were not in that fight.
They were not there for any of the fight. That they were sent in for a photo op and for a news story.
I don't even know where they came from. They just showed up. We were definitely done shooting. Everything was over.
Yeah, it ended up, in the way Ernie described it, and I'm getting the same vibe from you, this was a publicity stunt.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And it kind of always bothered me, because I was actually moved by that when I first read the article.
Yeah.
That you guys fought alongside these guys, but then to find out that never happened.
No.
Pissed me off, man. To know.
Well, I mean, there would have been no way for them. What vehicles were they in? Whether there's going to be a Toyota truck driving.
The only guys that could have been there were the cops, but they wouldn't come back with you guys. They were like,
there were no
police.
police.
Stay here.
No.
Yeah, they ran, and that's when you guys ran into them in that one alley.
I think maybe there were cops that showed up long, when we were on the objective, because we pulled security on the objective. There was an incident where we
because you found that they had broken into the safe, right?
They try to loot stuff, whatever they took. I just remember clearing the police station. We cleared my squad cleared an office, and then I think a room where the police would rest. They had cots in it. Somebody did a jail, whatever jail they had. I think I remember it being a very small jail. I remember it being you would come into the police station. There was a central room, and then there were rooms that spiraled off of it.
Right.
We cleared the police station 2 seconds.
And Ernie said too, and I'm curious if you saw the same. You find blood, but no bodies.
Absolutely. Again. Yeah. They take their dead. Whether it's a religious imperative, it's a tactical thing, whether it's both, and this was
I've always
every deployment I was in. Yeah.
I've always put it to tactical.
Yeah.
But I did want to put this up here because Cavaltino Cavalryman Che, he's Army too.
Oh, cool.
Armor. Says the M240B was one of my favorite guns to shoot. 7.62 in short effective bursts, provides good suppression fire.
Hell yeah.
And he is also a combat vet.
Cool.
And so the last thing I think we should talk about is really with the tow rocket. Did you find that effective?
I mean, they work. They're not full of, they're not high explosive shells, right?
They're not designed for what you used it for.
No, they're not. That's not what they're for. The problem is, is there a high explosive tow that has no shape charge? I'm sure there is. I'm sure it would have been useful to use some kind of high explosive shell or weapon into those windows, like a very, very big grenade,
right.
It'll still do the job. I mean, I think the charge in a tow is, I think it's a 4-pound primary and an 8-pound secondary or something like that. It's a very, very powerful weapon.
And I've never asked John, but what did you guys do with that tow rocket underneath that VW?
If memory serves me, if if memory serves me, we had our first sergeant was with us on the ground. Guy's named Robert Swift, and he was like an explosives guy. He could do everything. He was trained by the FBI. He was Ranger Regiment. This guy was no joke. Robert Swift was the officers and NCOs that we had, the senior officer and NCOs we had were superb, and he was definitely one of the superb ones. I think he either blew it up himself or something. I can't remember. I do remember that we had to collect all the tow wire. There was a concern that we would left the command wire because a tow is wire guided, so they like literally steer it on its way in. It's like a PlayStation controller that still had a wire in it. So we were concerned about policing that up. Again, these are things in combat. You go, oh, we don't want the enemy to do this. They're not rational. We just survived a life altering experience where people were shooting at us. Why would we worry about that? But that was a concern. Because
it ended up underneath somebody's Volkswagen.
There's just a missile like sitting like on the street. I don't remember
that guy.
There's just a missile out there. And later on in the war, that was a bigger concern that God forbid they get any of our munitions. I remember second deployment. We had a bomb that didn't go off. Like Air Force had dropped a JDAM, and the enemy had come and they hooked like chains up to it, and they drove away with it. We would definitely never leave that munition around, even though it's definitely not stable, and you would definitely want a professional to blow it up. Maybe we had explosive ordnance disposal come out and blow it up. I can't remember. We definitely didn't just leave it behind.
Absolutely. And now I'm done with talking to you about that moment because it's an important moment in the Iraq War history. Mosul, June 24th, 2004. And the campaign lasted all the way through September, as I recall.
Yep.
Dealing with that shit.
Yeah, we fought very hard in August. August was over the top.
And I do want to point out there was this other moment Ernie told me about, and were you there for this, when you emptied the city out and basically were looking for guys over 30 that weren't married?
Yeah, it was in Talafar.
At the choke points.
It was very sad. We went. So I would say whatever campaign they had started or however response, it would have probably began in June. There was some serious fighting that went on in April, but nothing in May. Very, very bad fighting in April. On April 9th which was the anniversary of the fall of Saddam, the statute did,
right?
That had happened a year prior. But yeah, it was this kind of like sweeping campaign that ended on September 11th of all times.
Dates, yeah.
Of all days. I mean, I remember it well. I was with Doc a lot during that time. And we ended up in a town called Talafar, which is on the Syrian border. Talafar would become very famous in 2005 to become the model for our counterinsurgency strategy of clear, hold, build. It was very closely associated with H.R. McMaster, who would later on become a 3-star. He would serve in Trump's administration. He was very, very influential in counterinsurgency. I met him a couple of times. He's a very, very nice guy. So we did that. We established a cordon around the city, and we told everybody to get out. And it was like we engendered this like humanitarian crisis. I remember watching like elderly people walk down the street like being carried by their adults, like their sons and daughters. Like I remember seeing this like old woman like literally being carried. Iraqis are not in the greatest of health, and they don't age gracefully. They don't have retirement communities in Iraq. So if you live to be old in Iraq, you have some serious medical ailments like that. The amount of older people that I saw that were just laying around waiting to die, it was shocking. So that's what we did. We emptied the city out.
And you were looking specifically for anybody that was age of marriage, men.
Men. We were looking for
and
military.
If they weren't married, they were insurgents.
They're more than likely, yeah. And we established a cordon, and we just pummeled this city for like 3 days. We had fixed wing aircraft. We had Spectre gunships. We had mortars. The amount of ammunition that we must have consumed in those 3 days. And then we went in and cleared it out. Sun came up on September 11th. Mission was over. That was it. We went home that morning. I think we were there for about 3 days, 2 or 3 days.
How many times were you deployed?
I did 3 deployments. So I did 37 months is what it came out to be.
Bless you, man.
Yeah. That was
proud to be your friend. I really am.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that.
Now, I know we've talked about the military stuff. Now let's get into the nerd stuff because you wanted to talk to Don about UFOs.
Don, tell me the truth. Is this real? Like, are UFOs real? Like, is this a thing?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
They're very real.
They're very real. This isn't like some like coast to coast, like 4 a.m. Like this is 100% real.
I don't know if Gary told you, but I had been a criminal investigator.
I told
him. Okay. And when I got decided for whatever reason to get into this, and that was back in the late 80s, I made a career out of exposing the bullshit artists. And I had some weird stuff happen. But that being said, I've had personally 2 primary experiences with the phenomenon. And that convinced me that there's something there. Now, that being said, over the years, when my wife and I were publishing our magazine, okay, she began the publication in 1986. I came on board in 1988. And my primary objective was to make this as absolutely real as it could be. No bullshit, okay? And over the years, as the director of research and the media liaison for the publication, I squared off with people in the intelligence services. I squared off with NASA. I broke 2 of the biggest UFO stories in the early 90s.
You'll remember one of them
on national
sure.
television. Okay,
tell him the one. Yeah, tell him the one.
Well, it was a shuttle launch in September of 91 called STS-48. And remember that in 84, Ronald Reagan began the Star Wars initiative.
Of course, yeah.
Which was basically a missile shield over the United States. And in 1 or 2 of our issues, we covered extensively the Star Wars initiative, the technology that they were basically developing. One was something called Brilliant Pebbles, which was a weapons system that was like a gigantic shotgun firing pellets to intersect with launching ICBMs. Okay. Well, on this particular shuttle mission, while the space shuttle was above New Zealand and Australia, they encountered 3 unidentified objects rising above the limb of the earth. And suddenly, and this is being filmed, this was a live feed from the shuttle.
Yep.
Suddenly, there's a brilliant flash of light that you can see from the camera. And then something streaks by the shuttle directly aimed at one of these objects. Now, remember, in order to be in orbit, all right, an object has to be traveling almost 18,000 miles an hour. So it's not affected by the planetary gravity pulled the object back down to Earth. This thing took a violent right angle maneuver, at least quadrupling its speed, to miss this incoming thing, which I believe was a brilliant pebble shot from a satellite in space. Hey, we got weapons. We got weapons in orbit. There's no doubt in my mind. None.
Space Force.
So
you're saying we have weapons in orbit right now?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So anyway, I end up going on Larry King Live with this story. I knew the producer, and the producer was back in DC. It was a guy by the name of Tom Farmer. I knew Tom. So I had called him up and I said, hey man, I've got this now on VHS tape, but I've got this live feed from that came directly from NASA that shows this object and what appears to be a weapons firing at it. And he said, oh man, he said, bring that down to CNN in LA. This is before those sons of bitches went completely woke, okay? And I go down there and they beam this tape back to DC, and he saw it and he said, oh my God. He said, yeah. He said, oh yeah, we got to do a show on this. So they asked me, they said, look, we've got to have a skeptic on there to do a counterpoint. Okay, which I couldn't figure that out anyway. I mean, what the hell for? This is not something that I am proposing. This came directly from NASA. Okay, fine. Well, who do you recommend, Don? And I said, well, okay, who's the biggest skeptic of the time during that period? And this was in June of 92. And I said, well, ask Phil Klass. Now, is that a name you recognize?
No, I don't know the name.
Well, at the time, he was one of the biggest deniers in the country. He was a senior editor with Aviation Week Space Technology.
Oh, okay.
And he was always the turd in the punch bowl. Okay. Or, you know, the skunk at the garden party. With it didn't matter what the damn case was, he denied it. Like, for example, part of this phenomenon involves people that believe, sometimes with quite a bit of physical proof, that they've been interfered with by beings that were not human, okay? In other words, the abduction phenomenon. Well, he wrote a whole book on it and never once interviewed even one person. I mean, this was Phil Klass. So Klass was contacted. He declined. So I ended up suggesting James Oberg. Now, Oberg was a NASA contract scientist, engineer, and incidentally, he had been an Air Force nuclear officer. Okay. Now, that meant he had at least a top security clearance with crypto access, at least. So, we go on the show. And the first question out of my mouth, and this started the fireworks, was, Jim, are you working under any security considerations from NASA? Which I thought was a legitimate question. And in other words, is there anything that you can't talk about? And he fucking blew up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because you know what the answer is. The answer is, yeah, there's tons of things I can't talk about.
Yeah, but not according to him.
Yeah.
So anyway, this particular case we thought would be one of the biggest of the decade, and in effect it was. And when I tell you what really happened after the case, now, we had a source, a contact, who I later found out had very strong IC contacts. As a matter of fact, I believe he was a part of the IC. And he called me up 2 days after the show was on. And he said, how'd things go? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, did you guys get a lot of inquiries from news organizations around the world? And I said, no, actually not a one, which kind of surprised the hell out of me. And he said, well, would you like to know what happened back here in DC? And I said, yeah. He said, well, you, Mr. Ecker, managed to piss off a large contingent at the Pentagon. And I said, I did. He said, oh, yeah. He said, as a matter of fact, you know that live feed you got that video from? And I said, yeah. He said, well, they encrypted it. You no longer will get and never have a live feed from near Earth orbit again that has not been vetted in time release, or in other words, you just won't see anything as it's happening. And that was in 92.
It was his fault. It's Don's fault that we don't get good stuff anymore.
Ruined it for all of us, man.
But yeah, John, if you're asking me, is this real? Yeah. Now,
are they aliens or is it just like foreign government? Like what are these? What are they?
They are not ours. Humans.
Yeah, absolutely. They are not ours. Now, back in the day, back then, okay, I was firmly convinced it was all a strictly nuts and bolts phenomena. In other words, somebody else's technology flying here from somewhere else. And I was still pretty young and naive then. And then I began examining other things. Now, today, John, I am convinced there's one of three possibilities. Now, hang on, strap in, because some of this shit will get a little weird. Number one, that there are definitely nuts and bolts technology that we're dealing with. And here's something that you may have heard about or not. I don't know. Our moon is on the far side, has a lunar base that is not ours. Now, it may be very ancient, and I think it is, and it may still be inhabited, which I believe it is. A base that's been there for a very long time doing God knows what. That's number one. Number two, there are a tremendous amount of evidence that we are also experiencing interdimensional shifts. Are you familiar with the multiverse concept?
No, that's out of my wheelhouse.
They don't teach that in law school.
No. Law school, no. They're
okay.
We're very, very black and white.
An interdimensional shift, in other words, from here to somewhere else that is beyond exotic. Beings from another universe periodically pop into our existence. Now, there are places right here in the United States where apparently this has been demonstrated to witnesses. One of them is that area in Utah called the Skinwalker Ranch. Are you familiar with that?
No, I've never heard of that.
Oh my God! Look, I didn't believe in any of the Skinwalker shit, but what's going on there? That shit's freaking me out.
Look, I believe in post COVID. I believe in everything, right? Like if that.
And there's one more possibility, John.
I'm not a skeptic on any of this stuff. I'm really not. Like
no, I'm not. You asked me a question.
I just want to hear it.
Yeah. The other possibility is that roughly 12,600 years ago, just about the time of the Younger Dryas event. Are you familiar with that?
No, this is all coming into me new.
Well, okay, this is a matter of the geological record. Something happened on planet Earth that caused the ice caps to melt and recede, and concurrently, during that event, all the massive fauna in North America and many other places, including Russia, what today is Siberia, the animals basically vanished in an eye blink. Now, you got to realize what was happening here on planet Earth 12,000 years ago. Half of the North American continent was covered in ice up to 2 miles in depth. There were countless millions of major fauna. In other words, large, huge animals like giant bison, giant diurnal wolves, saber-toothed cats, short-faced cave bears. By the way, are you familiar with that creature?
I've never heard of a short-faced cave bear. I've heard of the
I got to tell you something. When Don introduced me to it, I'm like, that's fucking scary looking. I would not.
Well, the short-faced cave bear was a type of bear that would make a brown bear or grizzly look like a kitten. Okay, if they stood on their hind feet, they would be as much as 15 feet tall.
Just like a super bear. It's like a very, 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 very big bear.
Yeah, look it up online, short-faced cave bear.
I'm going to look it up afterwards because my connection is not great and I don't want to. I started to. I was like, wait a minute. Just don't look it up.
Can I add something in here for you, Don, though? Because one of the things brought up about the Younger Dryas event, and it was a sudden change of everything. And one of the things that's believed to have happened was a magnetic shift of the poles that caused that or led to it. And, and we all know that the magnetic poles shift on their own, but was that what happened here? And I'm wondering if that's what you're getting at with this event.
No, I believe it was an astronomical event. I think we were hit by either a comet or pieces and parts of a comet. They found a crater under Greenland ice dating from that period of time, roughly 12,000 years ago, that's over 100 miles in diameter under the ice. Okay.
That's huge.
Something hit in North America. Now, of course, everybody's looked for the craters, but whatever hit the ice. Oh, that my wife is getting ready to take Bailey the Beagle outside.
Beagle Bailey, by the way, John.
Beagle Bailey. I love it.
The Gulf itself, the Gulf of Mexico, is in the shape of a crater. So we know that that's where the great one that hit the continental U.S.
Chicxulub.
Chicxulub.
Yeah. So anyway, with all that other bullshit being said, it is believed by many people, and I don't discount that there was an advanced human race on planet Earth then. Humans, just like you and I, Homo sapiens sapiens, but very advanced technologically. And it's conceivable, and this is all part of the stream of consciousness thinking, that these people knew that something was going to happen and they left the planet. They had the technology to leave the planet and then later came back. But for whatever reason, and there's a hell of a lot of evidence for this too, they then went underground. Now, if you're not familiar with any of these, I realize how this must sound like bullshit.
No, but look, I'm on this topic specifically, I'm very open-minded. Like I'm open to it all. And if you had asked me like 3 years ago, I don't know that I would have been.
Well, a lot of this is backed up by historical data. There's no way in an hour that I can give you enough data to.
I guess that means you got to come back, John.
I would love to talk about this.
Our show in the mornings, we didn't have one this week because I'm working on stuff for Dale Dye right now. I'm doing another book cover. I'm doing the what is it? What am I doing? It's the Brenner. Oh my God, the most hunted man on the planet that bad guys want to kill.
Cool.
Joseph Brenner, is that his name?
Is he a character?
No, he's a real person.
I'm a humanities guy, man. I don't know anything. Like you gotta.
I'll find it real quick for you. But this book cover, I just forget the name. I can't show it on camera because it's not disclosed. But
proprietary, yeah.
Let's see. Here we go. Go to projects. Go to Warriors folder, and Bremer. The book is the Bremer Detail. The guys that serve alongside protecting Bremer when he's traveling around the world. And hairy shit, man. And of course, my good friend, New York Times bestselling author John Del Vecchio, is he's co-writing it with him, but he's also serving as editor on it.
With Bremer?
Yeah, no, with Frank Gallagher,
who was on his detail.
Apparently, he is an investigative journalist, is what I understand.
That's cool.
I don't have all the details yet. In fact, after the show, I have to add some of the details to the cover because they loved my cover. So I'm like, yay, another win for Gary.
Nice.
So I never complain. What did I say on Twitter last night? I said, more book covers with my artwork have been awarded the Military Writers Association of America awards than any other cover artist.
I buy books by covers. I read books with nice looking covers.
Well, yeah, and that's why they like me, because my pretty covers look great as a thumbnail. You can really still see shit that makes you want to look at it.
So if I pull it up on Amazon, I go, oh, what is this? And
yeah, you'll look at it and go, oh, that looks cool. And like the cover with you saw the colors I chose.
Yeah, it's
for
perfect.
that. Yeah. You're underneath those red sheets that they were hanging out on the clotheslines.
Is that something you consider when you sit down, you conceptualize this, like, just commercially, like, what is this going to look like?
A lot of times, like, Julia will give me a snippet from her favorite moment in the book. I'll sit down and read it, and I'll go, this is the image that's in my head. Because what do they call that? I have eidetic memory. I remember things photographically, but that also means I'm visual. So when I'm reading something, I'm getting visual images of it. And so that was the cover I saw in my head to have you pose for. And it's one of my personal favorite covers. One, because you're on it, and two, because of how that came to me. I wanted to get that image of a soldier in an alleyway with the armed Humvee right behind him, and he's looking off like something just happened, and gets that look. Like, what did I just hear?
That's cool.
And you did it perfect. You did the pose perfect. And I know we kind of worked on that.
Yeah, because I did it in an alley, but I did it in a row of lockers. Oh, yeah. Obviously, you saw the picture.
I still have them somewhere.
Yeah.
If Gary's covers are so sexy, why haven't Playboy and Penthouse called him? Because I don't do boobs all that
That's
well.
A great question.
I love to handle boobs, but I don't draw them as well as some other artists. Yeah, there's nothing sexy about my artwork. Yeah, unless you like military shit, and then you go, "Oh, that looks fucking cool." Because
military art's great. I mean,
I like putting vehicles in there. My I have a painting I did. It's a landscape painting of right behind a Zero coming into Ship Row at Pearl Harbor.
Nice.
Smoke coming off the wings. It's just firing down there.
Yeah,
I got the tracers at different angles in the shot. And then you can see down below a Japanese torpedo plane coming towards the Arizona.
That's incredible.
And I did this whole painting, and it was supposed to be for a wraparound book cover. And then I'm going to say it. That cocksucker wanted to use a photo instead. It was a terrible photo that he chose. And I'm like, you're an idiot. You did
this painting. You painted this original
painting.
What's the dimensions on it?
Well, dimensionally, I paint it digitally.
Of course. Yeah.
Because, after 2010, I decided to go green. It's not. I just got tired of cleaning paint.
I follow a military artist, Ben Cantwell, on Instagram.
I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah, he does these like I think you guys are artists. The mind that works with that is absolutely incredible. He did something with the Scooby-Doo gang as Marines stacked on a door in Afghanistan.
I got to see that.
And like who's was it Fred? Fred's the saw gunner pulling rear security. It's so crazy, but like, or he did one of like Calvin and Hobbes in Vietnam, setting.
Oh, I've seen that one. I've actually posted that one.
That's. I mean, I admire people that think like that. I would not think to put Calvin and Hobbes and Vietnam and destroying a village in together.
Or Snoopy in World War One.
Or Snoopy in World War One.
Well,
there you go.
Chuck did do that one. I like that. The original artist did that one.
Yeah.
But I like shit like that. I like obscure, because the one thing you'll pick up, like even in the Army, I'll tell you this one. We were moving out for field training exercise, and everybody's fucking got their Sony Walkmans on. This is back in like 91. And like moving out training because we were probably going to get deployed. We're on alert, and everybody's got their fucking headsets on, and you can hear it like fucking death metal, fucking hip hop, rock,
all blended
hard
together.
rock.
Yeah.
And then me over in the corner with mine on, and I'm listening to Peter Gabriel, "In Your Eyes." And everybody goes, "Why are you listening to that pussy shit?" And I said, "You ever notice that you guys are wired for fucking sound, and I'm always the calm one? That's why. I'm always calm, because I try to find my zen in a moment, and I don't want to increase my testosterone. I want to be even keeled when something goes down." And that's how I always ended up in charge of situations, because I was always calm. I never lost my shit. I yelled at people, but it's because like poor Martin here, he's not talked the whole show. He's heard me yell at people. He's heard me like snap at people. It's like that military comes out of me, and I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And you know it. You have it too. You're a parent.
Yeah, I'm trying to like back off on it. Like in my retirement,
you gotta watch it with our kids.
Yeah,
you want the discipline, but you gotta watch how you do things. Because I really ran into a situation with Zoe one time, man. She pissed me off. She came in, she was having her period, and I told her, "Get out of the room. Whatever's go find it on your own and pull it out and get rid of it, and then come back here where you can talk to me like a human being." And she started, because I said, "Stop acting like a cunt," is the word I said to her. Oh, don't you call me a cunt.
She didn't take that well?
No, she didn't. And I looked at her and I said, one, I didn't call you a cunt. I said, you're acting like one. Language is important. Two, get the fuck out of my face. And she didn't move quick enough. And I reached to grab.
I'm going to take notes on that, Gary. How to talk to your daughter.
This is a buildup with her. She'll tell you. She was pushing my buttons. She was testing me. And I grabbed her to just turn her, and I was going to guide her with my hands on her back. Go to your room. But when I grabbed her shoulders to turn her, she went, ugh! It went straight to the floor. Like I just knocked the shit out of her. And I stood there for a second, and my instinct was, kill her. Kill her now and be done with it. But then dad instinct kicks in, because you love her. So I just looked at her and I said, get up before I throw you in your room.
Yeah.
I will physically throw you in there. And if you want to call family services, you go right the fuck ahead. I'm getting sick of your shit. She got up, went into her room. She came out completely different person.
Yeah, they're not. Girls are not. I got a 9-year-old, and it's my when you're a drill sergeant, if you've gone too far, and you've yelled, you've just gone like way overboard. Something else that I didn't realize when I was a drill sergeant, a lot of us probably had mental health problems, despite the minimal screening that we received to become a drill sergeant.
Yeah, you're ready.
Yeah, you're ready. As long as you're not like a full-on psychopath,
you're not dead. You're ready.
You're good. You're good to go. We were, I think back at things I did in that time, and it was like, not to take it a dark path or anything, but it's like, it's like cry for help. Like, oh, we're all of us are back from the war, and we're all pretty screwed up, and they gave us these hats and this authority, and and just let us go. But drill sergeants will say, hey, battle, you got a phone call, Hey, battle, you got a phone call means like, hey, whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing right now and just walk away because you're about to get in like some serious trouble. My wife and I do that, the phone call thing. Even to this day,
I had to talk Ernie down a couple of times.
It comes out of nowhere. It's like
Ernie. Yeah, he can get on that ledge, man.
Yeah, he feels very deeply. Yeah.
Well, because his boy, I don't want to say his son's name, was stressing him out.
Yeah.
And it was also I think his nephew too was involved in the situation, and it was bad. And I could feel just talking to him that he was on the ledge. His PTSD was kicking in. And the problem with him is, and like so many vets like this that have TBIs and PTSD, they feed on each other.
Yeah.
And they alter your normal functioning brain. And I could see it, what was happening with him, and got him calm, you know.
A lot of us have scars on our brain. Like I had a brain TBI that was an advanced brain TBI. I've had both. I had a regular TBI of my brain, and I had a dedicated brain TBI. And the stuff that they were able to pick up, it's like, no, man, your head is really, really screwed up. The amount of TBIs that people are running around with, and then you just put the normal stress of life, post-traumatic stress disorder, any other undiagnosed health problems.
Let's dig into that for a second, John.
Sure.
Because this has been my complaint about the current, well, it's now over, but the campaign of the last 20 years, both in Afghanistan and in Iraq, was the constant redeployment of soldiers. And instead of trying to bring in fresh meat, we weren't able to recruit like we wanted. Yep. So instead, they do either the backdoor draft or they redeploy guys that probably shouldn't be being redeployed. Yep. And I'm wondering, did that happen to you?
I don't want to say it was lucky. It was definitely one of the lucky ones that it takes so long to refit a striker brigade that I usually got about 18 months off. About, I think 20 months is what I did the math once. You don't know. It was not until much. I was a master sergeant before I realized I was like, dude, I was a master sergeant teaching at the University of Maryland around civilians. When you're around the military, everybody's equally screwed up. So everybody's got a crazy first sergeant. Everyone has a crazy platoon sergeant. I'm sure you've seen it on Facebook. There's a photograph of me when I was a drill sergeant. I have a first aid dummy's head on a stick. Like I had decapitated it and I put it on a stick. And I'm like walking around while I'm talking to my men. The Joes loved it. I loved it. My battle buddy loved it. Look, that is probably a manifestation of trauma that I experienced in Iraq because I handled a decapitated head while I was in Iraq. So is that me, mentally working it out and trying to make a joke out of it? Probably. It's probably an undiagnosed coping mechanism that there aren't.
Well, dark humor is
it's a thing, right? The gallows humor, right? Oh, look what I got here, a bag of ears. Like we had the joke about it before. And it's
like Ernie and I both ran into that situation with adipose tissue just sitting there, fat, just sitting there. And I remember looking at it going, where the fuck there's no bodies.
Where did this come from? Yeah.
There's body nothing parts here. It's just this chunk, and it's clearly human because you recognize the skin. The only other thing that possibly was close to that would be pig fat. Yeah. So no pigs there.
There were no pigs. Yeah, that's a person. That was a person.
And then my sergeant and my gunner, they were standing there with me, and they started laughing because I kicked it because I was curious if it jiggled.
Yeah.
And we all laughed. Good, it does.
Because what are you going to do, right? What are you
going to do? You got to laugh at it. I told that story at work, John.
They didn't like that. I would imagine.
They freaked out. They thought
they're horrified.
Kill everybody.
Yeah. They're horrified. Yeah. And it's and you're giving them like a little taste. You're not
just a little thing that happened.
You're not doing the in 3 years of combat, the worst thing I saw was an Iraqi family, and this is not the worst. Literally, the worst thing I saw was an Iraqi family that had rear-ended a fuel truck, and it destroyed the family, blew them to pieces. It was the craziest thing. That's by far not the worst thing I saw over there, but it was like a human family that was blown to smithereens. And, what are you supposed to do with that? Like, did you ever read the things they carried?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you come home with this stuff and you're screwed up. You're infecting your family with it. And it's, what are we supposed to tell people? It's your patriotic duty to go fight again.
Did you ever read Dispatches?
No, I'm not.
It's a great book, dude. You need
Michael Hare.
Okay.
H-E-R-R, Michael Hare.
Dispatches. Michael Hare. I'll remember.
Dispatches. He was a correspondent that spent, God, how many years in country? 4 or 5 years. He knew Sean. What the hell was that? Flynn. Yeah.
Errol Flynn's
who was a photojournalist over there, a number of other guys. Incidentally, Flynn and his buddy were apparently captured by the Khmer Rouge.
Holy shit.
Yeah, they just disappeared. They went off on a motorcycle and were never seen again.
Yeah, they disappeared, dead. I mean, they were murdered, of course.
This is Errol Flynn's son?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard that. Wow.
A lot of people don't know he was a warrior. Errol Flynn fought. He fought in the Spanish, was it Spanish, not the Spanish American War, the
Spanish Civil War.
Spanish Civil War.
Like a Hemingway. Hemingway didn't fight, but he was over there.
Errol.
But anyway, this book will give you a lot of insight, John.
Okay. Okay. I'll remember.
I swear by it.
I just put it in our private chat for you, John,
I see it.
So.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, we're it's tough, right? Because you have, and what's worse is like, you have a generation of young men, at least I did, that were open to the idea of fighting, right? We had kids coming in. I mean, if you enlisted in the Army in 2003 or 2004, you have the news, like, you know what you're getting into. We had infantry guys coming in 18, 19 years old. These guys were ready to fight. They trained to kill. They want to serve their country in the most difficult way imaginable. And the military's not going to turn them away from that. You know, we deployed our second deployment. 50% of us were combat veterans. 50%. It was a very experienced unit. And no one was going to go and say, oh, I can't handle it, I need to take a knee. The problem with TBI, PTSD, and any of the is that it's like a bond that comes mature, right? You know, we take these guys and gals and we put them in uniform and we send them overseas and they fight, and then you give up your 20s and 30s, and then you get out, and as far as the Army is concerned, that's the VA's issue, that's somebody else's issue, and they can transfer all of the terrible things that are going to come from a lifetime of military service, or even just a few years of military service, push it onto a different segment of society and bring in a new group of people. And that is to a certain extent the military profession. I don't know how you fix that. I would imagine you probably can't.
Well, you don't want the DOD or the military in particular fixing soldiers. Their job is to train them to kill. It is our society that has gotten better, by the way.
Significantly
when
better.
Don was in, there was no resources for vets, really.
None.
That really worked with them for their PTSD. And instead, we had Hollywood depicting veterans as dysfunctional. What's the word I'm looking for?
Well, that's not entirely
miscreants. They were treating them like dysfunctional miscreants.
After the late 70s, a phenomenon began called rap groups. And it was basically vets getting together, usually within the auspices of the VA or other, associated areas where they would come in, they would have a coordinator, and everybody would sit down, kind of like Alcoholic Anonymous.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Don. I'm a vet, and then you'd talk about shit that bothered you. And I've been to a few of those, but
well, I think they're very useful.
I quit going because one of the very last ones I went into, there was a couple of guys sitting in there. We had been going through a lot of rainy weather. And this one guy started crying. And I'm like, to myself, of course, what the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
Oh, all this rain. Oh, my God. Well, what about it? It reminds me of the monsoons. And I said, fuck this noise. And I left.
Wow. I put a much bigger premium on mental health stuff at this stage of my life.
Well, it's better. And it's better today for veterans than it was 20, 30 years ago. And we have far more groups out there. And I got to tell you, I prefer them to be civilian or run by the vets themselves.
Yeah.
The Department of Defense and the military should not be trying to fix anybody. They're good at one thing, teaching us how to kill people.
Yeah, they're very good. I mean, for all this talk about the U.S. military is not ready for war because it's woke or something, maybe it is, but I guarantee you it's ready for war.
Parts of it are. No, there's no question.
All that'll go out the window.
The only
that will
parts
all go out the window
right now, because I was talking to Don about this yesterday. I don't feel that way when it comes to infantry, whether it's Marine Corps or Army. When it comes to the grunts, and that includes even Air Force and Navy, because they got grunts too. The grunts,
Air Force has got some. Their forward guys that are on the ground are no joke. Like they're.
I got to tell you, man,
the attacks are no joke.
Our infantry is still solid.
Yeah.
Because the one nice thing, despite the military itself and those that manage it, are being woke. That's clearly a real problem.
Yeah. Gus Wolfen, go fuck yourself.
What did he say? Don has seen a lot of improvements since Korea. Mad Mardigan's a buddy of mine. I told you about him. He fought in the war and he got burned really bad. He's dealing with his stuff and he fucking forgot what war Don was in, and he said Korean War, and he goes, "How fucking old do you think I am, Mardigan?" My dad served in Korea. I was kind of hoping he might show up because I figured you two could talk, but he goes through stuff and he just goes quiet.
Yeah.
And I just let him do what he's going to do. Love the guy, though. I really do. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about while you're here?
So just on this topic, something I'm working on right now. Look, it's in its infancy. I'm currently undergoing the process of trying to tabulate how many additional traumatic brain injuries were inflicted in Iraq and Afghanistan. The official total for Iraq injuries is about 30,000. And I have reason to believe through Freedom of Information Act requests that the number may be much, much higher. I was involved in, look at Ernie, case in point. Ernie's got a traumatic brain injury from Iraq. He's got no Purple Heart, right? You have an entire generation of people that are very seriously injured. They were injured by enemy effects.
Scars you can't see.
You can't see them. You can pull them up on a thing. I went through the process of trying to have this adjudicated, and the Department of Defense has so much power to just be like, no, that didn't happen. Really good example in 2020. There was Iran did a missile strike on an American base in Iraq in retaliation for our assassination of Qasem Soleimani in January 2020. We had 42 traumatic brain injuries. The difficulty in getting those guys and girls Purple Hearts, the DOD fought it. The president did not want to, Donald Trump, and you say that what you will. He said, "Oh, it was just headaches, right? It was just a concussion." These are very.
And I blame that on the information being given to him.
These are very serious. These are because you want to go, "Oh, Mr. President, well, what were our casualties? Oh, they were very, very minimal. They're headaches." Yeah, I don't think Trump knows anything about traumatic brain injury.
Nothing.
But there's a regime set up. It seems to cross both political parties, seems to cross every administration, to include the current one now, that if someone has a traumatic brain injury and it's from the result of an enemy effect, that the tendency is to not award that person a Purple Heart.
And here's why, John. Because accountability on the Department of Defense is
absolutely, yeah.
Because they have to take some of the blame.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to fucking do that.
What if it was true that instead of Iraq and Afghanistan, instead of 30,000 casualties, it was 130,000?
Which I think is probably.
There is a peer-reviewed paper, American Journal of Neurology, that puts the number right around 100,000. Now, it has no way of distinguishing what are enemy effects, what are enemy effects that were also physical effects. So if you got blown up, but you had shrapnel in your arm and a TBI, your Purple Heart is coming from your arm, right? But not from your TBI. But more often than not, your TBI is the only injury. So what do we do for the guys and gals that had that injury, but no medals were conferred, their service was not honored? Not only that, you have Department of Defense through the VA and through something called the Army Board of Corrections of Military Records, ABCMR, however it comes out, they're actively suppressing this. And it is, forget about me for a second. I think it's shitty that we send people overseas. They get blown up. They have scars on their brain. They're fucked up for their entire life. And the only thing you give them is a check and you tell them to be happy. Yeah, the money's nice. The money is very nice. Believe me. All right. But I would rather have official recognition of the injuries I received in war.
Well, there's been a culture of cover your ass, and
it's cover your ass, 1000%.
Day one.
Yep,
1000%.
Day one.
It's very sad. So I'm still fighting the fight. It's going to take forever. I don't know how we're going to do it. Probably through
most of those
legal.
motherfuckers are chairborne warriors anyway.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, armchair warriors are the worst. And I do want to point this out too. There's something that is underlying in it. It's sort of in the shadow of what you guys are talking about that has bothered me for years, and that's that we have had memorials put up for a lot of wars while the soldiers were alive, except for one, World War I. And they still have not put up a proper memorial for World War I veterans. They're all dead now.
Yeah.
And it's shameful because that was the end of old warfare with World War I.
Well, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier can be considered.
Doesn't count. It doesn't count. There's not a memorial up there that counts as, because that is actually for every war, that memorial.
Getting the Persian Gulf War, getting the Gulf War memorial off the ground. One of my students, his dad was involved with it. It's not easy. It's very difficult to get a national monument.
And it pissed me off that we never got it for the veterans while they were alive.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and you go to DC and it's just these monuments are, I mean, especially Korean War is absolutely beautiful. Korean, Vietnam. I mean, that's.
I love the Vietnam memorial.
So beautiful.
It's a proud moment for me because I worked for Wagner Metal Arts and we cast the leg of one of the men.
Oh, wow.
Because it got, what do they call that? Doled out. In order to make sure it was done on time.
Oh, I had no idea.
Cast one of the bronze. We cast it. And I was like, holy shit. I got to touch it. I was like, fuck, this is so awesome.
That's so
cool.
And it
got sent to them to assemble the statue.
It's such an amazing statue, too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right there. You can just go see these beautiful works of art and hollowed ground. It's just great. Like that is what Washington is great for. You know, that's when, you know, that's when our nation's capital is at its best, you know, things like that.
Yeah. And if you walk to the left past the mall, you know, the big, the water pond between the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Memorial, if you head into the shrubbery over there to the left, there is a small memorial for World War I veterans, but it's off the beaten track.
Yeah. I mean, there's a Boy Scout memorial in DC, you know, I mean, there are things there that, you know, it's not great.
Well, this is another, how much time we got? I don't want to go over what Che says here. Unfortunately, not many people report TBI. In the military, they're some of the worst fucking people. When you're about to go home and they tell you, this is your chance to report any injuries. I know you went through this, John. Every soldier does. Before you go home, but if you fill this out, you may go into a waiting period and not get to leave here with your buddies.
Yeah, you're not deployable. There's all kinds of collateral things that.
And they do this to keep you from doing it.
Yeah,
it's designed just for that reason. Yeah. And then they have the med board process, which used to be like weeks at the most.
Oh,
now, since the current, since Iraq, the current Gulf War II, it's now can go up to a year to 2 years waiting.
Yeah, it can be a long time.
It's unacceptable what's being done.
Say again, Martine.
We have 1
go.
minute.
Yeah, we got to go. So, John, I want to thank you for being here, man.
Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
It's got to have you back again.
I'd love to do it.
We'll get you on the UFO show so you can.
Yes, please do. Please do.
I want to thank Penny, Andy Morrow, Scribe Light, Dragon Ruse, Anima Confusa, love of my life, Patrick Jordan. Let's see who else. Alex Moore, D. Bud Martin, Das Wolfen, Riker, 1776, Vinkman's Girl, Shinatsky. Fuck you, Shinatsky. And I guess that's it. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank our audience at KGRA. I want to thank Don Ecker for co-hosting the show with me. I want to thank Martin for keeping his fucking mouth shut most of the show. And I want to thank John Andrews for being an awesome guest.
Nice meeting you, John.
Nice meeting you. Thank you so much.
Everybody have a great Wednesday.
Those sons of bitches. Ma, I'm doing a show.